All right, I think it's time to get this started. Welcome to Intiva's Lunch and Learn for July 2023. I'm your host again, Ted Brown, Director of Product Management here at Intiva. And today we're going to be talking about Excel. I have to say, for me, Excel is probably my most favorite application of the Microsoft suite. It's very versatile. You can use it on a whole bunch of different types of applications and integrate into big data sets like Power BI, go ahead and do mail merges into Outlook. But it's also for me just kind of analyzing the data. You can pull a bunch of information in there through CSV files, take a look at information and make decisions based on that. If it wasn't for Excel, it would take a long time being able to manipulate the data and get to the information you need to use on a daily basis. So during this lunch and learn, we're going to cover just an overview of Excel, give some tips and tricks on some keyboard shortcuts that I find handy, make sure you're kind of going through it as fast as possible. Some conditional formatting, some pivot tables, some VLOOKUP functions, data validation, Sparklines, and Excel training. Now, what I want to kind of show you before we get into the overview is here's an example of something I put together for Excel to utilize it as almost like a solution that I've built within the Excel product itself. So Excel can be more than just, hey, let me go ahead and do some calculations and manipulate some data. You can actually build solutions within it that allow people to functionally use it as an application. For instance, I built together what I've called a risk matrix. And here we can kind of take an analysis of, hey, when launching a new product, what type of risk does it might incur to a client? Is it acceptable, tolerable, undesirable, intolerable? And on the other side, what's the likelihood of that risk occurring? Is it improbable, possible, and probable? And based on this matrix right here, I've kind of captured if it's a 1 to a 12, 1 being the lowest as being, hey, a low risk, 12 being the highest as being high risk, when people are putting together this type of risk analytics. Now, fast forward to this risk calculation. Now, I've utilized some of the stuff we'll cover within this lunch and learn, such as conditional formatting, some pivot tables, as well as some data validations to kind of build this solution. So, for instance, deploying the deployment issues for the new product, what's the likelihood of occurring? I'm going to go ahead and say possible. And now I'm going to pop it down to acceptable. As you can see here, it automatically changed the risk number and the color and the risk level based on the information I selected here. No one can select any other options except for what I pop in here, and then it actually builds out the solution of what I want them to see so we can have a really good understanding of what the risk is based on what we put together as a function within this Excel document here. So this all takes in some of the items that we learned today so you can build your own solution you can deploy at your organization to have people get the most utilization out of Excel itself. So let's jump in. Just like other lunch and learns and webinars I've done in the past, please use the Q&A section for any and all questions, and I'll go ahead and answer any of the questions at the end of this presentation. Also, if you have any ideas for any future lunch and learns you want to learn more about, please pop them into the Q&A section, and I'll go ahead and consider them for the Q4 or maybe 2024 launch of lunch and learns coming up. So let's go ahead and go over some of the Microsoft Excel. So Microsoft Excel was introduced as a concept for allowing spreadsheets to have users organize their data into rows, columns, and perform calculations. The interesting fact here was it was developed by Microsoft, which people know, released in 1985, but it was released on Macintosh program platforms first. It wasn't until 1987 when Windows had the Excel application launched in there. Quickly, Excel gained popularity and became a leading spreadsheet software. It has a user-friendly interface, powerful features, and extensive compatibility into other Microsoft applications. Excel's success propelled the Microsoft Excel suite, Office suite to become the industry standard for productivity software. And then soon after that, there's a evolution of more features they put into it. They allowed for advanced formulas, data analyst tools, pivot tables, charting, macros, and much, much more. These additions had made Excel a versatile tool for data management, analysis, and reporting. And soon afterwards, you had the cloud integration and cloud collaboration based on Microsoft 365. And Microsoft Excel has adapted to the modern computing landscape by integrating into this cloud service. It introduced Excel Online at the beginning part of the Microsoft Cloud Platform, Microsoft 365, formerly Office 365, and it allows users to access and collaborate on spreadsheets across devices, locations, real-time collaborations. Cloud storage, advanced sharing options have made Excel a powerful tool for teamwork and productivity in the future. So let's go ahead and get into some of the demo aspect of this. I'm going to go back and forth between kind of showing some stuff within the PowerPoint, as well as kind of showing you stuff within Excel itself. Now, some of these are pretty basic for the keyboard shortcuts, but I think it's kind of handy to mention these. So there's a whole bunch of keyboard shortcuts you can put in there. Control C for copy, Control X for cut, Control V for paste, and Control S for save. I feel most people kind of understand those. You have the Control P for print, but I do like the Control Z for undo, and this does work for other applications outside of Excel itself, and I find this really handy. So when you're in Excel, test. So I'm going to do my Control C for copy, Control V for paste, Control X for cut, Control V for paste. But if I want to undo this, so you did a whole bunch of action, instead of hitting the undo button up here, you can go ahead and Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, backs it everything out. It makes it really handy to do everything quick with your with keyboard keystrokes. The other one I like to use a lot is the Control Home and the Control N to move from the beginning to the last rows. So for instance, one thing also to note, Excel is really good at doing calculations based on pattern. So you can see here I'm doing 1, 3, 5, so I'm skipping every other one, doing odd numbers. So if I select these and highlight the bottom and go drag down, it will go ahead and keep that going. So you can see here I've just pulled down all the odd numbers. So if I want to get to the last row, I can do my Control N, and it puts me down to the end of it, or Control Home gets me back up to the beginning. What I also like to do is sometimes I want to select everything there. So I can go ahead and do the Control Shift Home, and you can see here it copied everything listed there. So it's a good way to go ahead and copy all the selections instead of having to scroll down on the scroll bar. Right, I only have 28 lines here, but if you had hundreds of lines, it would take a long time getting back down to the bottom. So these couple little keystrokes can save you time when manipulating data and working faster and more efficient in your daily life. Now, there are other intermediate keystrokes, keyboard shortcuts that I do find handy. You have the Control semicolon, which will give you the date, and this is going to be the current date right here. So Control semicolon will put the date here. So there's times maybe when you not want to put the date of the of when you created the spreadsheet, might have handy right there, but make sure you understand that this is just the current date when you hit the Control semicolon. It won't do, so when I open this up tomorrow, it won't say 7/26, it will still say 7/25 of when I selected the current date. The other one we have here is for open notes. I like to utilize notes when doing Excel sheets, so I can really kind of understand why I created something or why I modified a cell. And also if you're sharing this with other people within your organization, it's kind of good to let them know what entry was put in here and why. So if you do a Shift F2, it will bring up the note right here in this test. So if someone comes around here in the future and see, hey, this little notes listed there, click on this, they know that it's a test. And you can do Shift F2 again to modify it and enter again, and it pops it right back in there. So you can Shift F2 to add a note or even edit a note. The other one I find pretty handy is this Control 1. So when working with an Excel, you have different ways to format cells. Maybe you want to have dates, currency, percentage, or anything along those lines, and it really kind of makes sure that whatever entries you're putting in there makes sense for what you're trying to get out of the data set. So here I have all my 1, 3, 5s, but maybe they want to be percentage or something like that. So I can do my Control, highlight it, do my Control 1, and it will bring up my format cells. From here, I can choose a number, currency, accounting, change my alignment right here. But so it's a really quick way to get to the formatting of everything. And there's other ways to actually get to specific formatting, which I think would be handy, especially for accounting and financial firms. You have the Control Shift $, which will apply the currency. So I can hit here, Control Shift $. We'll go ahead and make them a actual currency. Or maybe this one to be a percent, Control Shift %. We'll make them all percents as well. Now you do have the capability when you have this highlighted of changing this right here. You have these format numbers right here as well. I do find when I'm actually working that the less movement of the mouse I'm doing, the quicker I'm able to get to certain things. So quick $, Control Shift $, is able to make these all the currencies. And you can also do dates as well. So say 1/15, 2023, 2/15, 2023. And I can go ahead, highlight these, do a Control £. We'll go ahead and make them the date. So you can see here the Control Shift £, makes it the dates. And the last one is Control 5. I do use strike throughs a lot when trying to make sure that I understand what's going on with the data set. So you can go ahead and do your Control 5, and we'll go ahead and do the strike through instead of having to click this little down arrow right down here and go to the strike through right there. Saves you time just basically doing a Control 5, and you can do Control 5 and Control 5 to release it again. So those are a couple of handy keyboard shortcuts I think will help you speed up your daily life when utilizing Excel. Go ahead and give it a try. There's a whole list of a whole bunch of other keyboard shortcuts. These are the ones I just kind of picked out to kind of explain to you. Do a search on the web, you'll find a whole bunch of them listed out there for you to see if it makes sense to use on your Excel trip. So let's go ahead and get into the next part. Conditional formatting. So this allows you to visualize and highlight cells based on specific criteria. You basically utilize this to feature and emphasize important information, identify trends of your data, and explore different formatting options such as data bars, colors, scales, and icon sets. I think this is great when trying to present information to a group of people. So you finish your Excel, you want to present it to maybe the board or present it to your boss. Using conditional formatting is a great way to highlight importance of numbers. I'm gonna go ahead and bring my sheet back. All right, so let's go ahead and go back into these. Let me go ahead and remove my strike through. Control 5. All right, so I want to go ahead and let's make these all percentages. Control 5. All right. 1, 3, 5. Scroll this down. All right, so we go ahead and make these all percentages right here. So what we want to do is, this is some information we want to present to the board. We want to say, hey, 100%, 300%, 500% over what we expected to produce for whatever solution we're trying to provide here. So I can go into and highlight this and come down into conditional formatting right here. Now, conditional formatting, you can come in and say, hey, I want to do a icon set and go down and rate these things. So you can see here, I'm putting the colors over it. You can instantly see that it's adding an icon set to say, hey, what was good and bad. So I can go ahead and put, I want stars. So at 100% was, not as great as 5,100%. So you can see the stars kind of aligning down this direction. You can also change the information based if it makes sense. If I want to go to my icon set, go to more rules, maybe it was the reverse order is actually the best way to show it. So I can come back in, do my reverse order, click OK, and now I can see the stars are at the top of saying that's the better value than the 5,100%. You also have the capability within conditional formatting is to manipulate the data bars to give it more of a gradient feel, give it more of a more color set. So I can come in here, get my color scales. You can make it a warm color right here. So hey, the red color is the highest level, and where the blue color is going to be the lowest level. Again, you can manipulate this however you want, but I feel like adding the icon sets and adding the colors makes the information pop and able to deliver the information in a much clearer and concise method than just having just numbers and figures on an Excel sheet. So recommend playing with conditional formatting. I do find it handy. The other thing I like to use it for as well is do a small piece of here is finding duplicate figures. 65. So as you can see here, I'll scroll this down. So imagine this being a whole bunch of data sets, maybe like 100, 150. I want to find out which ones actually have the same value, but I don't want to delete them. I'm going to hit conditional formatting, highlight cells, and go to duplicate values. And you can see here, it duplicated the ones at the top, 35 and 35. Easy for me to scroll down and just find which ones are the similar ones, to make action change, delete them out if I needed to, or if I just want to find out, maybe have a whole list of names and find out who has the same name. It's a good way to finding out the same name really quickly just based on the color set. So I recommend checking out conditional formatting. I utilize it all the time. Very handy to find and present information. The next piece I want to show you is going to be pivot tables. Pivot tables are great and a powerful tool for analyzing big data and being able to summarize it easily. Recommend you trying to learn how to create pivot tables to analyze your data sets and put it into a meaningful insights to you and your organization. Use pivot table field lists to arrange your data and customize the tables based on your requirements. So for this example, I've already created a, a demonstration here that I think will help kind of drive this home. So for this is some information I pulled from another tool set, say maybe a CSV dump to us, and we have a company 1, company 2, and company 3 listed here. In this example, it's giving me the device names of each one of the devices the company is utilizing, the size of the hard drive, and then what operating system each one of these computers are using. So we have Windows 7, Windows 10, Windows 11. Windows 7 is end of life, no longer supported. So this might be a good way to try to find out which Windows 7s, how many Windows 7s a client has. So I'm going to go ahead and select my information right here. Click on Insert and select Pivot Table. I'm going to have the range I already selected. It's going to create a new worksheet and click OK. Now, the great thing about pivot tables allows you to manipulate and summarize it however you want. So I'm going to go ahead and grab company name, pop it into rows. So I can see it says company 1, company 2, company 3. I'm going to grab the device name, but put it into the values. I want to calculate how many computers they have within the system. So it's going to say this company 1 has 9, company 2 has 16, and company 3 has 20. Now, if I go back to my information, I could have easily just selected them. I can see here I selected everything of company 1. Down here, it tells you the count 9, and I could do the same thing for company 2, 16, but it would be very hard to do that at scale. With 3 companies, not too bad to do, but that's what's great about using the pivot table is you can really quickly summarize a large set of data. So you can see here 9, 16, and 20. Now I want to know how many other version types in here. So I can take the version, which remember was Windows 7, Windows 10, and Windows 11, drop it into the rows. Now it's really taking this data and taking it further. So now it tells me the company, tells me the Windows operating system and how many they have each one. So I can see company 1 has a total of 9 computers, but 3 of them are Windows 10, 3 are Windows 11, and 3 are Windows 7. I can then maybe say, hey, I want to find out the size of each of these. So again, throwing more information here, but making it easily to digest information and take the information and maybe take action afterwards. So I can see company 3 has 20 total. 7 are Windows 10, 7 are Windows 11, and 6 are Windows 7. And here's the total gigabytes being used by the organization. Alternatively, maybe it doesn't make sense. You don't want to see all the Windows operating systems. You can utilize the filters. So we just want to find out which ones are end of life. Let's take the version, put it into the filters, and we'll click this at the top. I can go ahead and click the down arrow and say, I want to see everything that's Windows 7 and click OK. So now it tells me again in this information, here's the Windows 7 machines for each one of these 3 companies. So I find this as a good way to just manipulate the data, again, and find information to take and present to organizations, but quickly summarize a large subset of information. If this was hundreds of companies, thousands of computers, I can find this information in a matter of minutes instead of having to manipulate the data myself. Very powerful, recommending it to know pivot tables and introduce it into your daily working with Excel. The next thing we'll cover is going to be VLOOKUP function. Almost for me, I like VLOOKUP more than pivot tables, and I find it fun trying to use this solution to actually compare 2 data sets together. And it's really great with doing that. It's going to allow you to actually combine information into one workbook or one worksheet. The VLOOKUP function is a valuable tool when searching and retrieving data from multiple tables. I recommend learning how to use VLOOKUP to find and extract approximate matches, as well as understanding its syntax, which I'll cover here in a second. This function will save you time and effort when working on large data sets. So let me bring my demonstration back over. Now here I have my VLOOKUP. So it's going to kind of build on what we did for the pivot table. So for this one, I want to find how many number of devices company 1, company 2, and company 3 had, which we got from the pivot table. But also I need to find out what's the customer number to Intiva. Maybe there might be an internal customer number for us. So company 1 is a 1, 2, 3, 4 on our system, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in our system. Company 2 is a 6, 7, 8, 9, and company 3 is a 2, 4, 6, 8. Extrapolate this out further. Maybe you want to put phone numbers, the email address, or maybe even a address, whatever makes sense. But what we want to do is we have 2 sets of data that has company 1 listed in there, and we want to combine it into one worksheet. So for this, I'm going to hit the equals button and type in VLOOKUP. You can see here it already started typing for me. I'm going to use the tab button, and then it starts telling me what needs to happen. What do I want to look up? Which value do I want to look up? I want to look up the company 1 name. and I'm going to hit column, which number of devices. So I'm going to go to my pivot table here, and I want to look up this range right here. So I'm going to look up anything in this range. Then the next part is, which column index number do you want to present? So for this instance right here, I'm looking at my PV data. So column 1 is the company name. Column 2 is the device. I want to present on column 2 because that's the device and information I want to present onto that cell. So I'm going to use number 2. And the next is, do you want to have it be an approximate match or you want it to be an exact match? I want it to be an exact match. I want to match exactly company 1 to company 1. So I'm going to type in false and use my close parentheses. Click enter. You can see here instantly it brought down the 9. I'm going to go ahead and scroll this down and it got me that information right there. Remember, it's pulling from this the value right here for the column number. So I did column 1, this for example, put that in. Put 1, it's going to match on company name because that's column 1 on this data set. But I really wanted to make sure that it's grabbing the column 2 for the device. And we'll do the same thing for customer number right here. So I'm going to go ahead and VLOOKUP. I want to look up on the company name column. Where is my data? I'm going to click on this new worksheet right here, select the rows and columns, and then I'm going to say which column index number, and I want to present on number 2. And I'm going to go ahead and say this is going to be an exact match, false. And now I have my company number right there and scroll this down. So pretty quickly, I was able to get the company name, how many devices they have, and our internal customer number. Right, it's a small subset of data, but if you had hundreds of rows and hundreds of information, you can quickly digest this information, put it together with a quick VLOOKUP function. Now, one thing to show you as well, company 4. So I'm going to scroll this down and company 4. And what it's going to do is going to give me a pound in A. Company 4 did not exist within this lookup function. And so that will happen sometimes when looking at your data. Maybe you have a different customer number that didn't come across from the other data set that you had. And when I'm presenting and looking at stuff, I don't like to see this pound in A information. So what you can do when utilizing this, if you don't want to see this error message, you can utilize another feature called if error. I'm going to type in if error. And you can see here it says if error with this VLOOKUP function, column, a comma, what do you want to present? I want to say none. So I'm going to type in none here and hit enter. So now it didn't find anything, so it has none. Instead of giving the pound in A, it didn't. This way it gives the actual functional number, functional name, so I can look this up, even do like a filter and find information on these. Or maybe I just want to have nothing in it at all. I can take the none out and say parentheses or quotes, hit enter. And now you can see here, nothing's listed in there. So it won't give me that pound in A. So I do find a way to utilize it when presenting on errors and making sure that it doesn't come up within your solution set. I find it very handy to use. Next, we're going to get into data validation. Now, this allows you to set a specific rules and restrictions for your data entry cells. Very similar to what I was showing you on this subset of making sure that people can only enter certain things within each cell. Now, this is, I recommend learning how to use data validation, which will prevent errors, and ensuring the key part here is the data integrity. No one could enter anything else in those cells I had there except for the possible and tolerable. It made sure that that can select exactly what I want them to select. And this way you can define the custom, and also you can define custom input messages and error alerts to guide users when inputting data. So let me bring down my demo sheet again. I'm going to click on my data validation. So for this test, let's go ahead and talk about this will be maybe building a start time for your employees. Maybe the HR or people's team is put together when each person is going to be starting at your organization. So you have the employees listed right here and start time. So if I gave this to somebody to fill out, they could put in whatever numbers they want because nothing's restricting them. I want to make sure to restrict them to certain times to start. I want to say, hey, they can only start between the hours of 8 and 11. Does it make the sense to start our organization at 5 p.m.? So within this, I'm going to go ahead and select this information here, and we're going to click on data. Now there's a button here called data validation. I'm going to select this, and here it gets in the information. What do you want to allow? Right now, the default is to allow any value, allow you to do whatever you want. But I want to restrict that. So I'm going to go ahead and select time. What What do you want to say? I'm going to say I want to select, people can only start between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. Input message. What do you want to type? Start time. And input message here, that's the title of it. Please enter a time between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. So that's what's going to let people know when they look at this, look at the cells here. The other part here is you can say what happens if they don't abide by what you put in there as far as restrictions. Please stop. Enter a time between 8 and 11 a.m. So click OK. And so now I click in these cells here, it tells you start time. Please enter time between 8 a.m. and 11. Give you information of what the person should do within the cell itself. So now I'll come in, I'm gonna go ahead, okay, great. I'll go ahead and do 8 a.m. Click enter. That worked out great. Tom's gonna start at 8:30 a.m. and Ted is gonna start at 11:30 a.m. Error message. Enter a time between 8 and 11. Will not allow me to do 11:30 because I made sure to restrict that information between 8 and 11. Retry. Oh, okay. I got to do 11 o'clock because they can't start after 11 after that time. And now it popped in there. So it's a good way of making sure to restrict and maintain the data integrity for the reason behind the Excel solution here that's providing a solution to your company. So highly recommend trying the data validation, a very powerful tool and a lot of different applications to it as well. So when you click in it, you have different ways to make lists, decimals, dates, custom time links. So it really can try to make sure that it makes sense for the data you're trying to protect. All right, so I have one more, I believe, to get into for you, and that's going to be Sparklines. Sparklines are great. It's a great way to make a mini chart that provides a visual representation of data trends within cells. Great way, I think, for presenting to boards as well as any management information based on information on a row of data sets. Recommend trying to take a look at this to learn how to create Sparklines to create and analyze data patterns and trends. You can utilize different types of Sparklines, such as lines, columns, win-losses, to enhance the data visualization. So let me bring back our chart again, our demo sheet, and Sparklines. So here's some information I'm going to build on a Sparklines for, say it's a sales team that has a sales team on the US as well as sales team in Europe. You can see here, this is the dates of 2023 all the way to the end. And each one of these numbers are what was sold, the revenue sold for those 15 days. Now, I want this actually to be in a vertical format, a horizontal format instead of a vertical format. One thing that is fun to do or be able to do with Excel is do a special paste. So for this instance, I'm going to do a Control-C to copy it, which I showed you keyboard shortcuts. I'm going to open up a new worksheet and I'm going to right-click. Here it has a paste options. What do you want to do? So it has, you can just paste it normally. You can paste if it was values. We had like a functions there, this was actually paste the values and not the functions. Maybe you want to copy the formulas. I like to use like this transpose. So I can click this transpose. So now it's taken my vertical information and put it into a horizontal. So transpose the X and Y axis. Very powerful to be able to utilize this and do this quickly instead of having to recreate your data set. So if you ever have an instance when you have the X and Y axis swapped, utilize the transpose. It can make you a simple way to get it into the other order, whatever you want to do. So back to my Sparklines. So here's my data sets with my time in here and my dollar values. And I want to have my Sparklines happen right here. Information. So for Sparklines, you have data. Oh, you want to have your insert. And you have your Sparklines right here. I want to insert a line chart. So I'm going to hit line. The data range is going to be this range right here. And click OK. And now it put in here a graphical representation of how this data looks. So you can see here kind of dropped low, got really high around this time period. I think it was 24,000, and then dropped back off. Do the same thing down here as well. Drag it down, and now I have a graphical representation of my sales in Europe. So it doesn't displace the need to have the numbers and figures, but you can analyze trends real quickly. This is great for KPIs. You can see the KPIs coming up or coming down when doing a a dashboard report to the board or management. I do think this provides a great way to graphically represent data and put it into an easily digestible form. You do have other things you can do within this as well. You can change it to more of a Sparklines or columns if you wanted to, and you can get into columns if you want to do columns. So I do find it a great way to actually jump in and provide more information if necessary. So recommend trying it out, play with Sparklines, introduce it into your KPIs and dashboards to your management teams. Now, I did have some Excel other tips and tricks that I presented during this while I was going through it as well. So if you remember, I have the if error. If error will remove the # in and a functions within data sets when utilizing your VLOOKUP tables. Utilizing freeze panes actually is another good way to make sure you can actually capture your data and look at a large data set. So if people aren't used to freeze panes, grab it right here, go back to my pivot table lookup. So if I put my mouse right here and go to view, and then you have in here your freeze panes, I'm going to go ahead and click the freeze pane right here. So what it's going to tell me is going to keep everything above it right at the top. So I can scroll down and I can see here it keeps my column headers. So I know which one of these represents. I know this B is going to be device name, this size right here. And if I didn't have the freeze pays on, I might not know which one of these data sets, what it represents. So I recommend utilizing freeze panes as much as possible when taking a look at large data sets. And the last one I have here is the paste special. It's a really good way to make sure you can choose how to copy the information and paste it, or how you want to paste it, transpose it, paste the values, however you want to do. Recommend trying that out. And lastly, I just want to make sure Excel training. Excel is a very versatile tool, and maps these tips will help become more proficient. I went over a couple key things such as keyboard shortcuts, conditional formatting, pivot tables, functions like VLOOKUP can greatly enhance your Excel skills. And I do recommend experimenting, trying different things, and looking to advance your knowledge will help you further your Excel career and make sure that you're able to present information in a faster, more timely way of doing it. So I want to show you right here within our solution set as well for people utilizing e-training, there is a large course set on Excel. I'm going to come in here, come to my Office 365. Let's see, actually go to my library, Office 365, Microsoft 365 apps. You can see here we have Excel Essential Training, Excel Power Training, and Excel Pros. 2.5 hours, 3.5 hours, 6 hours. And that's almost 12 hours of training right here available at your fingertips to learn how to utilize an Excel the way you want to utilize it. So I can take a look at my power users and come down here. It tells you how to, let's see here, merge tables, as well as come down to how to work within a table set. And then going into your VLOOKUPs, which I covered today, and going into the match function. Utilizing match and index thing are great for looking at more of a matrix of data and trying to figure out what you want to do, where the VLOOKUP is taking a look at everything that's on that left bar column. So I recommend trying to take a look at the match function. So a lot of information here at your fingertips to make sure that you become as proficient as you need to be within 365 Excel, and be able to utilize this to present information to your management team, as well as present however you want to present it. Great tool, very versatile. And I think that brings us to the end. So if no one has any questions, go ahead and put it into the Q&A section if necessary, but I'm happy to get back to you if anyone has any further information they want to learn more about Excel. Again, if you have any ideas for extra topics you want to cover, please put it in the Q&A section. Happy to build up that recommendation list for what we're putting down for the 2024 Lunch and Learns, and we'll go from there. Great. Well, thank you for spending your time with me today. I hope you learned some more things about Excel, and I look forward to talking with you in August. Thanks so much and have a great day. Bye.